Pat Mayo Experience Valspar Championship DraftKings picks and preview. Want to give a shout out to the members of Fantasy National who cashed big last week, a $50,000 winner, a $12,500 winner. And Pat Mayo lost $80. Way to go, Pat. Your picks are fantastic. But if you're a subscriber of Fantasy National, you make your own picks, and you don't have to be worried about the loser picks of me. You know, good week in Honda, terrible week in Mexico. Maybe it's a week on, week off thing. I can get back going. Fortunately, I have Geoff Ulrich from DK Playbook and Fantasy Golf Metrics on the line to help me out a little because Fantasy Golf Metrics have been hot fire for like the past month. So, you know, Geoff, who's going to win? Tell me so I can just bet that.
I don't know.
Well, thanks for nothing.
Steve, the guy who co-founded the site, he's really the one who's on hot fire right now. So he likes. There's a couple players we'll get to, but someone he's pretty high on. A couple players might be like good GVP picks for DraftKings too. So we'll definitely we'll save it for later in the show, just so people don't tune out like 1 minute in.
Well, I mean, give me one. Give me one of these GPP sleepers we're going with here. Is it John? Because I like him.
I like Hunt too, but we also like Brad Snedeker a lot.
Oh, me too. All right, we're on so much the same page. I don't see how we could lose.
We're on a roll here. All right, we're just gonna win all the money this week. I like the start.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna split all the money, but that would be okay. I just don't want to lose again.
Yeah, anything's better than losing again. I agree.
All right, let's go to the very top of the board because for the Valspar Championship, one of my personal favorite events of the entire PGA season, it gets a legit field for like the first time ever. Jordan Spieth is a former champion at this event, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, short game's going to be important. Putting is going to be especially important. It's hard to track putting week to week because it's something that flips all the time. But, you know, Jordan Spieth has not been the best putter so far on the West Coast. But the big three this week, you got Spieth at 11-8. Rory's here, and no one's even talking about him. He's 11-3. And then you got Sergio, the king of the ball striking the last 2 weeks, and holes in other parts of his game. He is $10,900. Do you have a preference between these guys? Because I think you can make a weird case for every single one of them. Like with Spieth, you're like, oh, this course kind of sets up perfectly to what he's doing. His tee to green game is still top notch as it goes along. And, you know, the short game and putting is really going to help him out. Maybe it flips now that he's back on Bermuda grass. With Rory, no one's going to play Rory. And we know that one of these weeks is just going to go snap. And Rory's just going to win everything. And then Sergio, the ball striking and historic putting at this track has been really good. But the last 2 weeks, he finished top 5 in strokes gained approach at the Honda Classic, top 6 in strokes gained approach last week. And outside of like a 2-hole stretch on Sunday, he would have been with the leaders as well. So I find you can make a compelling case for all three of them. Obviously, you can't roster all three of them on the same team. Do you have a preference between all three of these guys?
I mean, I'll start off just by saying Sergio's ranked our highest. He obviously, like you said, his ball striking is immense right now. It's the best in the field anyways. So he was pretty awful around the greens though last week too. So I mean, it's something to keep in mind. You do kind of need an all-around game of Valspar. Adam had one when he won last year's top 8 in like every single category except off the tee. So if Sergio keeps that putting up, improves around the greens, yeah. But I think there's a pretty good argument that you can go a different way in GPPs at least. I think for cash games, I'm starting with Sergio. He's ranked really high for us, like I said. That's fine. Spieth's pretty expensive. He's in pretty good form too, actually, if you look at some of his trends. It's not like he's so far off the map that, you know, we need this huge turnaround. Like you said, he really just needs to start putting better. Rory's interesting. I'm going to throw out a pro-Rory argument here. There's a lot of correlation between this course and Quail Hollow if you look at the leaderboards in the past. Couple guys who've won or done well at both. Streelman, O'Hare, a couple other big names. Woodland's done well at both. He's won here, done really well at Quail Hollow.
Jason Kokrak.
Kokrak. I mean, there's actually quite a few names if you go look at the leaderboards of those two events. So it's conceivable Rory comes in here and plays really well. Now, I'm probably not going to have like a ton of Rory or anything. That's my argument for him, though. This course he could take to it right away. A little bit different than PGA National. I like Henrik Stenson. I don't really care that he's coming in off a layoff. I think Stenson's a guy who's you know, he's a veteran. He can come in off a layoff and get it done. His record here is really immense, and I'll throw out a few stats. First of all, he's only shot on over par here once in 12 rounds. So I mean, like on a course like this, Copperhead, it's one of the toughest on tour. That's pretty good too. Where is my Henrik Stenson notes? Here they are. And he's been positive.
I was going to say, does it just say Henrik Stenson hits all the fairways? Very good. Not sad.
No, it says he's from Sweden too, Pat. But 12 rounds at Copperhead, only one was where he lost strokes gained tee to green. So again, if he's going to be lower owned than Sergio, I think I'd have some interest in going like overweight on him at least. So he's pretty interesting. Justin Rose is interesting too, but not really playing that well. So I kind of like Stenson if the ownership projections come out and say he's going to be lower than Sergio.
Well, the one thing I actually kind of like Sergio objectively. I mean, for cash games, like you mentioned, I think he's just very safe. I think Stenson is incredibly safe too, even with that layoff. And I thought Rose last week at WGC would be rather safe coming off the month layoff, and it didn't really pan out that way. But I did like what I saw from him in certain stretches. Like he would have these 9-hole stretches where he played really well, then he was in the trees, and then he just made bogey, 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 bogey. But the final round at WGC Mexico, Justin Rose really came through. And I just look at his overall game. Like he's one of the few players in this field that can get distance off the tee, yet still keep it somewhat accurate. And the big thing is, you mentioned Sergio with the around the green game. Rose, too, wasn't particularly sharp in that area, but I think it really depended a lot on the lie, and some of that Kikuyu grass just really ate people up. Well, the around the green here, there's going to be a lot of sand. There is some water in play at Copperhead. I just don't think getting up and down is quite as difficult as it was last week, and I think that we might be sleeping on Rose a little bit. I think a lot of this is going to have to come down to ownership projections, because regardless of where Stenson's going to rate out, and I don't think he's going to be as highly owned as Sergio, but I think he'll be closer to Sergio than Rose is going to be. And if you started your teams, let's say Rose Stenson, that's viable. You can make that work in a GPP, and I don't think that many people are going to have that combination.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Rose could be the forgotten guy because Casey's right under him too. And we know Casey's going to be the chalk because everyone just wants to play Paul Casey every week and not have any chance of getting a win. So like me, I mean, but I agree. I mean, I think Justin Rose between Stenson and Casey, he's going to lose a lot of ownership, which is good. And you could even start him with Sergio and probably make a more unique lineup that way if you want to play Sergio and just eat the chalk, whatever he's going to be at. So I agree. I'm kind of in on Justin Rose. I mean, it should set up pretty well for him. He's played well at Quail Hollow too. Is another correlation there, and he's actually got a couple top tens here. So it's risky because he didn't look that good last week, but it definitely a player can turn around quick.
Well, one of the things that I really like to do with the most expensive players on the board, and we'll just do this with the 5 that are ranked and priced over $10,000 right now, is let's take salary out of the equation. Because when you're dealing with guys at this level, you need to get the winner. I mean, you need someone at least to come inside the top 5. Great, if one of these guys doesn't win, who's going to perform the best? So let's just take salary out of it. If you had to rank the guys 1 to 5 from over $10,000, how would you go? Would Spieth be number 1? Because I think he would be for me.
It's either him or Sergio. I'd actually lean Sergio just because we do have him ranked a little bit higher at Golf Metrics, but Fantasy Golf Metrics. But it's really close between those two. I would go Sergio and then Spieth. Spieth's still ranked high too for us. After that, it really kind of comes down to almost preference. I think Stenson with the course history probably give Rory the nod over Rose. I don't know, just because they're both kind of in a little bit of middling form. So, I mean, that's how I would rank them if you take salary out. Now, obviously, you take salary in and ownership, things change a lot. But I would go Sergio, Spieth, Stenson, Rory, Rose.
I would go Spieth, Sergio, Rose, Rory, Stenson. I think that it's the upside of Rory that I find really enticing. And I just know we haven't seen it. He's just not playing all that well, and he hasn't come through on the upside. And when we talk about floor, the player without any floor of that equation is also Rory. So if one of them is going to shoot 80 one of these days, it's probably going to be Rory. But he's also the biggest candidate to shoot 61 and win this tournament by 7 strokes. So it's always really enticing. Do you feel like with Rory, it's one of these things where it's to the point where everyone is just so pissed off with him every week? They play him, he's not any good, and he's so expensive that you're going to have to be in this small buying window where you almost have to play Rory every week because you know what's going to happen for him, and the ownership just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping every week. We always talk about being a week early on guys. It seems like Rory is the guy that you do want to be the week early on.
You are either all in or you are all out on Rory, in my opinion. You kind of hit it on the head. Like, if you're playing Rory, you can't stop playing him because it might be this week, it might be 2 weeks from now, it might be like 4 weeks from now, but eventually he'll pop with a big week and he'll probably end up in some GPP winning lineups. I've been fine just fading Rory or playing him in like one $4 lineup or something like that and just being like, I don't, whatever. but I really feel like he's still not quite there. Maybe I'll throw him in one lineup this week. I'm more interested in him next week at Bay Hill if he's in the field. I'm not sure. He actually played well there last year. He's really right in the mix up to the end. I'm not sure if he's actually in the field because I know the match plays the week after. But like I said, there's that Quail Hall connection. It could happen any week. If you don't mind taking the variance and like the low ownership, don't get off him here because there's just no point. Just keep playing.
In the $9,000 level, we have another 5 players, starting with the guy that you mentioned already, Paul Casey. He's $9,800. He's followed by Tyga at $95, then Tony Finau, $94, Ryan Moore, $91, Gary Woodland, $9,000. I, like you, bet Paul Casey to win last week at 30-1 in a significantly stronger field. Now he's 28-1, and I look at him and I'm like, Paul Casey can't win. What the hell am I doing? Like, how much money would you have if you just bet Paul Casey top 10 every single week?
Oh yeah, no, I mean I'd be in a much warmer, bigger house. I mean it's like just play him on DraftKings. Eat the chalk and cash games and bet him top 10. I mean this week's kind of interesting because you do have Justin Rose right under him, like right above him. Like we said, who's going to be lower owned. He was really chalky last week. Actually came through though with a pretty solid weekend again. So. I don't know. There's not much else to say. I think this is a ball striker's course. He's still having some issues on the green and around the greens, but we have him ranked out really well over the last 12 weeks too. I think he's like second strokes gained tee to green or something, top 5. So look, he's playing well again. It's not like anything has changed with this guy. I have no reason to get off him here. So I don't know if you have any takes. Probably don't bet him, but again.
Yeah,
unless you want to be part of the sad losers club.
I mean, everyone at least some point during the year becomes a part of the sad Paul Casey club. It's like, oh yeah, Paul Casey doesn't win, but Phil just won. Maybe he can eventually win because I'm on board with you. Like whether I go by the last 12 rounds, 24 rounds, 50 rounds. In fact, the further back you get, the better Casey continues to do. You mentioned he's an extremely good ball striker. He scores really well on par 3s, and there's 5 of them at this course. That's going to be a really underrated part. It's a really hard thing to gauge, but someone who historically plays really well on par 3s should have a little bit of an advantage here. And it's not like he's a disaster around the greens. He just happens to be a disaster on the green. So if he can get himself up and down with enough regularity, Paul Casey's going to be fine. And the fact that I don't know if people realize that he ended up coming 12th last week because I think they took him and he was such a highly owned player. He did poorly through 3 rounds. Everyone was like, screw Paul Casey. They were probably losing so much money at that point. No green screens on the app when they looked on DraftKings that, hey, Paul Casey actually kind of came through once again. Like, would you pair him with one of the top guys in a cash game here? Like if you went Sergio Casey to start your cash teams?
I think that's the most logical start, to be honest. I mean, like we said, Sergio's in such good form. Then you get a guy who makes every cut, comes like top 25 every week, like Casey. He's a little bit expensive, but he's not that expensive. And then you can just fill your roster with 7K guys, which is kind of where, you need to be aiming every week anyways with the way the salary structure breaks down. So to me, that is a really logical start. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it's pretty logical. And it gives you a lot of room, to fit in the value guys you want to.
So the rest of the $9,000 guys, Tiger, Finau, Moore, and Gary Woodland. I actually like Ryan Moore the best of this group at $9,100. He's performed well here in the past. We saw him click at Genesis a little bit. He scores really well on par 3s. He's going to keep it in the fairways. He can get himself up and down. But like when he was contending for the title against Charles 2 years ago, he couldn't make a 10-foot putt. And that was the end of Ryan Moore. And that seems to be the end of Ryan Moore all the time. But you talk about guys that play well at Quail Hollow. Ryan Moore, despite not being a bomber, can play well there. The Tour Championship, another place which I don't know if it necessarily correlates, but I see a lot of similar shots off the tee and some of the longer irons that Ryan Moore is able to go with. I think that will play itself out well here. Like I'm just avoiding Tiger. I'll take the loss on that one if Tiger does well. It's one of the nice things about Tiger is that I am rooting for him to win. So even if I don't have him, I'm not going to be too disappointed if he wins and I lose. Good on Tiger. It's great news for everyone, and great news for everyone involved with covering golf, because it means more people are going to check it out. But like, do you have any faith in Tiger? Or do you like Ryan Moore better, Finau better, who was T5 here last year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to roster Tiger either. I was actually kind of surprised he's up to 9,500. I was thinking, if he was under 9K, I was thinking maybe he'd get on a team or two, but not at 9,500. I'm like you. I just root for him. I'm glad he's healthy. Every time he's in the field, it brings, more little bit more talking about the event, which is great for us too, great for just golf in general. So, but I'm fine. I'm fine leaving him off here. I mean, we'll take a look at what price he is at Bay Hill next week and how well he plays here. But I'll have some interest next week. I'm fine laying it off. This is like his first time seeing the course. This is a tough course. So let's just get some reps in for Tiger and move on. But Tony, I feel like this might be the week people start to get off Tony Finau a bit. I feel like people are starting to get a little short with Finau, blowing winds, didn't play that great last week. 9,400, I like it when players are priced up and they bring their ownership down a little bit. So I want some Tony Finau here a little bit. I mean, he's still a good ball striker. He still played well here last year. He's like the Paul Casey argument. I'm probably not going to bet him at 28, but playing him in DFS makes some sense this week. I do prefer him over Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore has been in contention like 2 of the last 3 years here. He still doesn't seem to be in great form with right now. So 9,100 is just a little bit more than I want to pay for Ryan Moore, even though he brings the great course history. I'd rather go down to Hadwin than Moore, even though I know Hadwin's probably going to be chalk this week.
I'm with you. I'd rather go down to Hadwin than Moore, too. Hadwin can be as chalky as he wants. I am not getting off that. Of course, he won here last year, and he has all the skill sets that you want. He's an excellent putter. He's good around the greens. He scores really well on par threes, and the irons were hot fire last week in Mexico. Led the field in strokes gained approach. That's 2 consecutive weeks. Now, he's been playing really well for the better course of the last 7 weeks as well, and I don't think people have really noticed it. So it's really hard to repeat at any tournament on tour, and this course especially is so difficult that it seems very unlikely, but I think he's setting up really well and trending and peaking at exactly the right time.
Yeah, the one argument I'll make against him, and it's kind of like devil's advocate because I do like him, it's that now that he's priced up, he's going to be chalky too, because it's like, oh, this is where he won last year, and he's playing well. Now people are cluing in. Like last week and the week before was really the weeks to play him because he was 7,500 and no one was talking about him, even though he was playing really well. So it's a little bit of an argument. Again, we'll see what the ownership projections are later in the week. He's kind of trending towards being popular, but he is 8,800, so it might keep the ownership down. But I'm not necessarily scared of playing him, but might be a GPP fade because Adam Scott's kind of interesting right below him too.
Yeah, I think Adam Scott's interesting. I really do like Webb Simpson, who comes in right below him at $8,500 too. And then if we just talked about this course is going to be hard and you might have to rely on your short game, potential longer irons, and hey, maybe it gets a little bit windy. Who knows? I know the tree lines do effectively squash a lot of the wind that comes around, but Brendan Grace is right there as well. That's the one reason I don't think that Hadwin ends up getting too chalky, because there's a lot of really good plays and names that people like to play overall. But I like Webb and I like Brandon Grace. Not as much as Hadwin, but just on that little step below. But I'll have way more of them than Adam Scott. But I just can't wrap my mind around Adam Scott. I know he's playing a lot better. And historically speaking, when you look at like when he won at Colonial, it's another less than driver off the tee course. He can keep it in play a lot like Honda as well, which he has won at and did come T13 2 weeks ago. If the irons can start clicking for him, he can just drain a putt throughout the course of the week. Like I feel like he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I feel like he'll be fine too. I think you're actually in a pretty good price. So this is really, it is like an all-around test. Like I said off the bat, guys have tended to putt well here who've won, but at the same time, you set yourself up by ball striking really well throughout the week. And that's how, Hadwin, Schwartzel, and Spieth won too. So obviously they sunk a lot of putts. But again, talking about DFS, Adam Scott at 8,700 is going to set himself up well, I think, if he strikes it like he did last week or 2 weeks ago. So I definitely don't mind taking some GPP flyers on him. Grace is interesting, hasn't been in the greatest form. I think if we're talking about South Africans, I'd probably rather take a shot on Louis, who's been top 5 and strokes gained off the tee the last couple of weeks. Now his irons have been terrible, but he is Louis. He can turn that around really quickly, as we saw at some points last year. And the other facets of his game has been fine. So he was top 10 here a couple years ago. I think if I'm going South Africa, I'd go to Oosthuizen.
I would go Grace over Louis. I think Charles for the price, who also is not playing well right now, but does have a win in a top 6 in 2 appearances here the last 2 seasons. It would be nice to see some form. I just worry that Louis is going to have a round where he shoots 85. Like he has 3 really good rounds and then 1 really disastrous round.
I mean that's what he did last week.
What's that?
That's what he did last week. I mean, he did
it the week before. He was in contention at Honda, and then all of a sudden Sunday came around. It's like, where the hell did Louis go?
Yeah, again, he does, but he appears to be close. Like it's always good when you see players shooting those low rounds, because it does appear that they're putting it together, and maybe they just need a week or 2. That's kind of my theory on Louis right now. he's usually not this inconsistent. So I feel like we might get a good week here. I was interested to see him in the field. So he does have a top 10. So again, it's GPP, but I think I'd go Louis over Grace. I just feel like he's been showing more upside lately.
Okay, so I mentioned I like Webb Simpson. I just think that he's been on a really nice run lately, and a lot of that has been propelled by the fact that all of a sudden he can putt. He's getting a ton of strokes putting. I don't know whether that's overly sustainable over the long term, but it seems like he's not the worst putter on tour anymore, which is really nice. But the rest of his game really does work out well here. Tee to green, he's always been kind of lights out. Everyone liked the Webb breakthrough coming, and then everyone kind of backed off a little bit. Then when it almost happened at Honda, and then everyone was back in last week, and then he didn't perform all that well last week. I actually like how this course sets up for him. When it's not a bomber's paradise, I always feel like Webb Simpson really does have a chance. And with his short game being solid, the fact that he can make a 5-footer with, some degree of confidence now, I think that he sets up really well. So after Hadwin in this range, like I mentioned, I like Grace. I like Webb a little bit more than Grace, though. He'd be my second favorite guy in this level.
I'd take Webb over Grace too. It scares me a little bit that he's riding such a hot putter, but again, you need to putt well here to win. I mean, Hadwin was riding a hot putter coming in here last year too. This is a great course for Webb Simpson. I mentioned the Wells Fargo connection. He's got some great Quail Hollow form. He's played well at this course. He's played well at TPC Southwind before too. Another course that correlates well in my opinion. So I think Webb Simpson's a really good GPP play in that range. People are probably going to go to Byung-Hun An too because he's coming off like a couple top fives, so it looks good on the sheet. I think this is a better setup for Webb Simpson, though, quite frankly. It de-emphasizes driver, which is good for him because he's not a long hitter. So, yeah, I in this range, Webb, I mentioned I'll have a little bit of Louis, but I like Webb. I think he's actually a better play there too. So I'm on board with that pick for sure.
Well, you mentioned that ball striking can really come through, and Ben An is an excellent ball striker. I just always worry that he's just going to make one or two critical errors and take himself out of the tournament. As someone who's been a long-time Benny An supporter, it just you see it happen every time that you roster him. You're like, hey, and the fact that I didn't at Honda probably makes a lot of sense of why he ended up doing well throughout the course of the weekend. But he struck the ball excellently at Honda. He gained over 5 strokes with his approach, but he also gained 3 strokes on the green. I don't think all of a sudden he's just the world's best Bermuda putter. I would expect that to drop back down a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's probably going to like 4-chip at some point and take a triple and take himself out of it. And he might still have a solid week, but he does, there's some flaws in his game, especially around the green. So I think for this course, like I said, I'd rather take Webb coming in with the good short game and the hot putter, because that is a factor here this week. I'm not writing off Byung-Hun An because I'm on the, we were on team sad Byung-Hun An last year at Phoenix. Looks so good, but he's a good player. I just, I don't know. I feel like he's a little bit priced up, probably going to be a little popular because of his recent form. But let's talk about Cam Smith, because are you on the Cam Smith train this week? Because I keep looking. I looked into him a lot last, and I can't find any.
When am I not on the Cam Smith train? You
right.
know I'm in.
He's your. I forgot he's your guy. Yeah, from the team event last year. I mean, yeah. Look, he's top 10 in bogey or worse percentage. He was first in scrambling at Riviera. Like everything about him, he's third in strokes gained total over the last 12 weeks for us. I mean, everything about him checks out right now. If he hit his irons a little bit better at Riviera, I feel like he might have got it done there. But if that carries over and he hits his irons a little bit better here and everything else stays the same, I think it's a great setup for Cam Smith. So I did write him up in the the playbook article this week. Now I did feature the winners there last two weeks too. I had Phil and I had Justin Thomas the week there before. And I only write up 2 golfers. So it's on a streak. We'll see if Cam keep it rolling, but I really like him this week. I feel like I'm going to have him in every lineup.
I don't know if I'll have him quite every lineup. I might not push all in. I'll definitely be overweight when it comes to Cam Smith. But when we think about like sustainable skills that players have over time, now is Webb Simpson the best putter on tour? No, he's not. But he's putting really well right now. The one thing, a lot like Spieth and even Patrick Reed, who's going through a lot of struggles right now, Cam Smith is in the exact same tier as them. He has an immaculate short game. And that's going to get you out of so many problems here. So if the winning score this week mirrors last year when Hadwin was at like 12 under, 13 under, I don't know if Cam Smith's going to get there. And that'd be my one problem with Brendan Grace too. I don't know if they can crack double digits this course. But if it's like other years and the winning score is like -7, -8, and saving par really does become a skill that you need to have, I think Cam Smith is I don't want to say a lock for a top 5. That would be a bit generous. But I do think that he's going to perform incredibly well.
Yeah, it's a good setup, and he's coming and playing well, and we like him as a player too, right? I mean, he's a young player on the ascent, so I like it. I definitely like the price too.
So the other few guys in that bottom $8,000 tier, Fitzmagic is 8,300. Cooch, who you'd think the set's up perfectly for, but now I'm just terrified of Matt Kuchar for some reason. David Jane, thank you. $8,200. And then Kevin Na, who I do really like this week. But again, he falls in the Paul Casey, Tony Finau camp of can't bet this guy because that would be ludicrous. But at $8,000, he seems like an excellent DraftKings play.
Yeah, no, and I expect he'll be popular this week, which is fine. I mean, he's playing really well too. He's got a really good short game too. It was on display at Riviera, so very kind of similar play in terms of Cam Smith. But I like Cam Smith's upside a bit better, obviously, as you can probably tell. But there's nothing wrong with Kevin Na here. I mean, he was in contention to win at this event 1 year too. Sets up well. I definitely take him over Kuchar this week. Kuchar is, I don't know what is going on with this guy's ball striking, but he has lost something. He's getting around with his putter in his short game right now, and even that wasn't that good last week. So I don't know. He's got the course history Matt Kuchar does. I'm not going to touch him. I mean, it sounds like you're on the same boat. I would just avoid him for now until he finds his game. I don't know. If people are going to roster him, that's fine, but he's really not trending well in terms of what I've seen.
Yeah, well, he lost over 7 strokes on the greens last week. That's never really going to help your overall performance. But is this going to be the year where, because Kuchar's always chalk at the big events because he always tends to perform really well at the majors and like Heritage, you got to take Matt Kuchar. He's going to hit every fairway and has a great short game, which really should translate here as well. But is he going to bomb it all the way up until the Masters, and this is finally when he wins the Masters?
Oh, that'd be interesting. I mean, he'd really have to go and turn it around because, I mean, his ball striking isn't anywhere near what it needs to be to win the Masters. But, maybe it comes out. Maybe it's like happens at the Open again or something like that. I mean, it could happen. I mean, he turned it around last year. He got on a roll like towards the Open Championship. So I think he'll find it again. But for this week in particular, it's just such a tough course. Again, I go over last year how well Hadwin was playing coming in. I just think there's better plays than Matt Kuchar.
Well, it's weird because just thinking from a large-scale GPP's perspective, we just talked about like 5 guys in the same range who are all going to be way more popular than Matt Kuchar. And that basically never happens. He's always the chalk play in whatever range that he's in because he always seems relatively underpriced to where his skill set and actual DraftKings points rest. Because he's one of those guys that people always think that, hey, you're just getting placement points with him. He never really makes a lot of birdies. But he does make a lot of birdies. There's the reason he ends up coming top 10. A lot of it happens on Sunday when he's completely out of it, needs that money to satisfy his wife when it comes to the paycheck and bank account department. But if you're getting Matt Kuchar at like a third of the ownership of like Kevin Na or Webb Simpson, like, does that entice you a little bit more? Because I don't even know if I can pull the trigger on that.
It really doesn't, to be honest. I mean, that's how poorly he's been playing. I mean, it kind of started at Pebble Beach. He started off well, then he just bombed. It's just the ball striking isn't there. It scares me. I mean, this isn't like a young player who's just going through a bad patch. He's close to 40. It could be a bit of a downturn that we see take hold for a while. So I just don't feel the need to do that this week. There's so many good players underneath him. Especially even in the high 7K range. I mean, if you want to take Matt Kuchar, why not just take Zach Johnson, who actually has been striking it well, and he's only 7,700. I mean, that's kind of my theory. Like, just target a similar player at a lesser price point who's actually been playing well. It is going to be low owned too. So
last guy in the 8,000s, 8,300, Matthew Fitzpatrick. I'm never a Fitzpatrick believer. Are you?
Not if he's playing in North America. No, I mean, if he's in Europe, sure, but I mean, 8,300. He's too expensive. That's my take on him. If he's like in the high 7s, I'd probably have some interest, but I don't really have too much interest there. All
right, let's move to that high $7,000 area from like 7,900 to 7,500. The one name that I just keep coming back to, and I can't help myself, but Chez Reavie theoretically lines up perfectly for this course. Now, whether he's hit the wall, whether it was just a lot because he really enjoyed playing on POA, and now that he's back on Bermuda, maybe it's not going to be so well. And we've seen him struggle with the flat stick at this tournament in the past. That's why he has no really good finishes. But tee to green, I mean, over the course of the past 6 weeks, he's been really good. And where he has not played well, I mean, he played well for like the first 2 rounds at Riviera, then didn't play well. Didn't play overly well last week in Mexico, although he still did gain strokes with his approach. I'm willing to risk it on Chez Reavie, and I don't even know where the popular sentiment is coming in on him. I don't think he's a big enough name that people are going to stick with him after 2 bad weeks, but I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. And like Chesson Hadley is another guy that I'm doing the same thing for this week. And if they burn me here, then you know what? That was on me. I should have saw the writing on the wall, but I'll stick with Chez Reavie at 7,900.
Chez Reavie was a guy we were really big on to start the year, and he came through like obviously playoff loss and a couple good weeks. He had a really good week at Pebble too. He has hit a wall though. We kind of called that too because we said, well, maybe this might be a good week to get off Chez a couple weeks ago, and he bombed. I think it was at Riviera. So, and he kind of continued that at WGC. You're right though. I mean, this is a Chez Reavie course. So if he is going to turn it around and pop again, I mean, this is a perfect venue for him to do it at. I don't know. I'm not on him this week. I just feel like I'd take Cam Smith. Maybe it's just because I'm like too all in on Cam Smith, but Luke List is kind of interesting below him too. Luke List played really well at the start of this tournament last year. He had 2 like really big rounds. It was like gained like over 4 strokes tee to green over the first 2 rounds. So I do still like the fact he's coming in with form. It might just be one of those bounces where, he comes in off the playoff loss and plays well again. And I feel like List might be ignored just because of that. So I could see Chez picking it up here again. I really could. You're probably going to get way lower ownership than you've seen. Not a player that's super on my radar because I do feel like maybe he's just trending back down to kind of what we call his baseline and a bit more average play. But, hey, I mean, it's a good setup for him at the very least.
Jason Duffner in cash games, just put it in?
Just put him in. I mean, I people can look at the course history, but he's even putted pretty well at this event too. I mean, the guy's so consistent at this event. It's kind of crazy. He's like no worse finishes than T26 over the last 9 years. And he's finished between like 11th and 26. I mean, it's crazy, but no, just plug him into cash games and move on. There's actually another player I'd almost feel the same about, but Duffner's definitely a lock. Yeah.
It's not Ollie, is it?
No. For cash games, I was going to say Streelman.
Yeah, I love Streelman in any sort of format because I think that he might get a little bit of a bump because everyone kind of seems to be on Streelman in terms of his pricing on DraftKings this week just being so cheap. So I think that he's fine in cash. He's won this tournament before, so that always helps. But like tee to green, the guy has been super legit over the first few months of the season.
Yeah, and he doesn't make bogeys. Like I think he's first in bogey or worst percentage right now. As in he makes the fewest. So he's been really good to start the year. And like you said, he's a former winner of this event. Another guy who's played really well, Quail Hollow too, by the way. But yeah, 7,500, way too cheap. And he won't be as popular as Duffner just because of the name value. People just think, oh, Kevin Streelman, probably don't even know who he is, half of the people. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about Ollie this week? I mean, he makes so many birdies. He's like 3rd in birdie or better percentage. I always pop him in a GPP lineup because he makes so many birdies now, but is he just making too many bogeys to win here? Is that like...
It's been the consistent streak. Like when you look at what he's up to and you kind of backtrack his stats, like 2 of the past 3 tournaments, he's gained over 3.5 strokes with his irons, which is exactly what you would want to see someone doing coming into this course. He gained almost 4 at Honda, and we know how not well that turned out for him because he lost over 4 strokes off the tee. The guy can't drive the ball anymore. It's really strange. Even at a course where you have to club down, he still seems to be unable to do that. So if he starts putting the one saving grace at Copperhead as opposed to Honda is there are very few 7s and 8s available for people to take, but there are consistent bogeys for people to make. So those big numbers for Ollie won't be as big as they were at some of the other events. Like even at Riviera, you can make a lot of really big numbers. That just doesn't seem like it's very much in play here. The overall set of holes are harder on an average basis, but the gigantic blow-up holes just don't seem to happen.
Yeah, I'm really high on Snyder Johns. Like I really feel like he's, I don't want to say the next Justin Thomas, but he's in that mold right now where he's still a young player. He flashes so much upside. His birdie or better potential is so big. I feel like you just keep rostering him in GPPs every week, and he's probably going to get a top 5 again soon. And he'll probably follow it up with a missed cut. So what? But I still like him this week. I really feel like, again, he will figure that off the tee stuff out because that has been what has been killing him. But when he drove it well at Phoenix, I mean, you saw what happened. He popped. So, yeah, he's super risky. But, again, if I'm taking one player there in that 7,700 range for a GPP, it would be him. And I'll just live and die with the results, I guess. But I'm still really high on him going forward.
I'm doing the same thing, but I'm going down to Ross Fisher at $7,600 instead over Ollie, at least in terms of how I prefer the players to be put in my lap. I might use some Ollie when all is said and done, but I will be overweight on Ross Fisher. I just look at I know comparing people to their world ranking is never really that great of an idea because the system is incredibly flawed, but internationally, he is a very good player. He seems too cheap in this field, and I realize he is not super strong around the greens, and he is not the greatest putter, but if we talk about ball striking, and that's what's really important here, Ross Fisher is a very, very good ball striker, and he seems to be the one Euro player that's not really getting any love whatsoever.
Yeah, what happened to Ross Fisher last Sunday?
He couldn't putt. He lost over 5 strokes putting.
I mean, you check out his strokes gain approach, and it feels like he should have shot like 6 under, and he had like 7 bogeys in his first 12 holes or something. So I don't know what was going on, but you're right. I mean, this guy's a great ball striker. He's this quality European Tour player. He's been in good form too. I mean, he gets like runner-ups every like once a month. So he doesn't win, but who cares? He's 7,600. I kind of agree. I mean, I feel like he's kind of in that Ollie category of you should take him just because of his upside and his kind of world ranking there too. Martin Laird has actually been playing well too. I know he's your favorite, but I did mention him.
Purdy Murdy has back-to-back top 10s.
No, I know. And he's a guy who, when he gets hot, and he's going to be like 1% on. When he starts striking the ball well, he'll stay hot. So I'll throw Laird out there too. Fisher's probably a better player, but I kind of like both those guys if you need if you're making 20 lineups and you need a low ownership percentage in this range.
Yeah, I mean, if you play Martin Laird in 2 of 20 lineups, you're massively overweight for the week, I believe massively. At least. So, yeah, listen, Purdy Marty, especially at a course that has so many par 3s, that's like the bread and butter for Martin Laird, just hitting them par 3s and moving on their way. And this is usually the time of year when he starts playing a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's just like a player who holds form, and usually, he'll string together some top 10s. So I'd be fine riding him for one more week here. Striking it well, and that's the main thing. I mean, when he strikes it well, the rest of his game is usually okay, at least. So he's good enough a player at 7,600. I could see him top 10ing again here anyways.
Yeah, I know I talked about Rory and being the guy that is the week early on Rory for when he pops, and then, hey, I got him at 6% ownership. Is Patrick Reed in that camp, or you just don't play Patrick Reed anymore?
I never really played Patrick Reed to begin with, just because he's so hard to nail down from a statistical perspective. He misses so many fairways, yet he still will play well. I'm fine missing out on him here. I feel like the field is stronger. There's some, we already mentioned some GPP plays we like. I don't feel the need to roster Patrick Reed just because of his name at 7,700. Again, I mean, if he starts finding a few fairways, he'll probably pop. Hey, he's another guy who played well at Quail Hollow last year too, right, at the PGA. So maybe there's a connection there.
Yeah, and he's lost in a playoff here before too. I mean, he's always going to save him. Right. He's always going to save himself because he's so good around the greens, but the rest of his game just isn't near. I'm going to be avoiding him this week. Be a fade.
I think that's the play. I mean, I feel like that's probably the smart play.
Yeah, and listen, I just mentioned a whole bunch of other equally as low-owned names right around him that I just prefer, so I'll take those guys instead. $7,500 and below. You mentioned Kevin Streelman. I'm with you on Kevin Streelman when it comes to it, but the biggest name I think this week that's going to cause the most confusion for people is Charles. Charles not playing well. He's $7,500. He's won this event, and he didn't have, I mean, he had good form when he won 2 years ago because he had played really well in South Africa and overseas coming into that event, but he just has not flashed any form. He had a mini run on Friday at WGC Mexico before he bled it all back to the field. But long irons, hit some fairways, make some birdies on some par 3s, be a really good putter over the course of 4 rounds, which we have seen him sustain over the course of his career. He's not always the most consistent putter week to week, but it seems like when he starts reading putts well, they all start dropping. And we've seen that happen because he's won these events before. Hell, he's won the Masters before. So I think his short game is good enough, and he was top 5 at the Masters last year too, that he can contend at this tournament. He can strike the ball well. He's just so irrationally inconsistent. I think because of his price, though, he does make a viable GPP play.
Yeah, because this is the range where the type of player starts to fall off a little bit too, doesn't it? I mean, Bryson DeChambeau, Jim Furyk, I mean, they're okay, but Charles Schwartzel definitely kind of sticks out in terms of world ranking and also what he's done in course history too. So yeah, he's risky just because of recent form. I mean, if you weigh recent form in any sort of regard, then I mean, obviously he's not going to rank that high up for you. But again, we're talking about world ranking, talking about course history. He definitely pops in that regard. So I could be talked into him. I would rather take Justin Hadley. I would rather get back on that boat. I know he burned everyone on the universe at the Honda Classic. I don't really care because that was really his only bad result over the last little bit. And again, you go back to like 12-week rolling averages. He's still, I think, 6th in approach for us, top 10 strokes gained tee to green over that time frame. He's got course history here too. I don't have any reason not to get back on him here and just give him one more week. So I'd rather play Hadley, but Schwartzel definitely, again, when you're talking about looking at the players, I think if you're going just pure GPP, then you can definitely mix them in.
Well, I like Hadley too at 7,400. And the one big thing about this week, as opposed to the Honda Classic, he's not incredibly under-cursed this time around. So
right.
maybe that was messing with his head. People were tweeting at him, and he didn't know what to do. Then he said he didn't believe in curses. And that only propagates it even more. So yeah, I'm willing to give Hadley another go at this. Hopefully he can come through. He has actually played well at Valspar in the past of his career, and he's clearly a better player right now. At least he was until the Honda Classic than he had been at any other point of his career. But you mentioned Snedeker right off the top, and I think when you get someone like Charles at 7,500 and you get someone like Snedeker at around the same time, even if you're not really in love with where their games are at or even their skill sets in general, you know that they can win on the PGA Tour. And getting win equity from players down in this range, I always think it is worth it to put them into a few lineups. As much as I like Streelman, he's just not as good as those two guys if we're just measuring out peak performance. Now, Streelman's been incredibly safe, and I understand that. So for cash games, Kevin Streelman sounds really smart, and I'm completely on board with that. But if we're still talking about which one of these guys do I think is going to win, Charles and Snedeker would have my vote 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm glad you brought up Snedeker. We obviously talked about Snedeker right off the top. He would be probably my top play in that range. Again, you take out that first round at the Honda, and he's been actually pretty good over his last 5 or 6 rounds. So again, his putter has been going too. He's kind of like Webb Simpson in that regard, but he's a cheaper version of Webb Simpson. So I like it. He's probably going to be at least, not super high owned for GPPs. So he does have a little bit of course history work in his favor too, but the form hasn't been that bad. You mentioned, he's a guy who can win. So in this range, and I'm perfectly fine taking GPP flyer, and I definitely take him over Charles, but I do understand a little bit of the argument there too.
So the rest of the guys in the $7,000 range that I'm giving a look at, Charlie Hoffman is one of them. He's just underpriced $7,300 once again. And this is, we're entering the stretch of the year when it becomes Charlie time. And he starts getting in contention, then doesn't win, but ends up coming like T11. So that's fine for $7,300. Johnny at 73, I do like a lot. He's going to keep it in the fairway. And he's just been playing really well recently. He's been making every cut. I really wanted to take Kyle Stanley, but he withdrew, so do not play him at $7,200. Poulter's interesting. Don't love him, but I do love Chris Kirk. He's $7,100. You're going to know everything you need to know about Chris Kirk after about, I'm going to say 8 holes. He's either going to be in the lead or he's going to be in dead fucking last, because that's what Chris Kirk does. But when I punch everything into the key stats that I'm looking at this week, Chris Kirk rates out the best for me over the past 24 rounds. He maintains himself on that list over the past 50, which is surprising because he really didn't start playing well again until the swing season. So even if you look back a little bit, his skills do translate here. He's been playing really well on par 3s. He's striking the ball really well. Just everything across the board, Chris Kirk has been performing. I don't want to say to an elite level because that would just be fake news. But he's been well above average, and the $7,100 price tag is just too low.
Yeah, I'm on both these guys with you. I'll just throw some about John Hugh. 12 rounds at Copperhead. 10 of them he's gained strokes gained tee to green against the field. So he's got a really good course history too. And like you said, playing well. So he's I don't want to say he's a lock for cash games, but he's a really good cash game target. He's a good target all around because he's never really a player who gets super high ownership. And I'm on Chris Kirk too. I was on him at Honda a little bit. He actually was pretty solid there. Again, we're talking about price, a price point here. It's only $7,100. His price, I think, actually went down after playing solidly. So no reason to get off him here. He's actually been striking his irons really well, which you want here. So just a solid all-around player who's not going to lose like 10 strokes on the greens for you or lose 10 strokes around the greens because he's got a pretty good short game. So 7,100, he's really good deal in my opinion at that range.
And even when you look historically when you separate it by putting surfaces, whether it be bent, whether it be POA, whether it be Bermuda, he played pretty well through the POA swing, and he is historically a disastrous putter on that surface. And when you look at it, bent grass is his best surface, but he does historically gain strokes on Bermuda as well. So I'm just willing to give him another shot. When you talk about cash games, I think you're right. I think Johnny Question Marks might be the better cash game play because Kirk is going to be high variance. Like, I don't want to say that he's Rory in that sense, but he has a pretty high upside for his price point. But he's also, a candidate to come T140. Like, that's just the game that he's going to play. But I think if he starts off hot, he can not only... We've seen him. He has 4 wins on the PGA Tour. The guy can close when he gets into contention. He's not Ian Poulter in that regard. He just needs to get himself there. But you're going to know really quickly because he starts off hot. And if he doesn't start off hot, you got some serious issues.
Yeah, no, I mean that is Chris Kirk's game. I mean, if he starts poorly, he'll probably shoot 4 over and then disappear into the vapors for the weekend. But there's a couple other names at 7K. I mean, we could definitely talk about. I like CT Pan this week. I don't know if he's on your radar at all, but his ball striking has been really good. Now, this is a guy who cannot putt at all, just period right now. But if his putting improves even a little bit, I feel like he's going to get himself in the mix of some of these tournaments. He's top 20 in driving accuracy and in greens and regulation on tour. He's T3 in strokes gained tee to green at the Honda Classic, where he's T17. This should set up well for him because he's not super long off the tee, but he's accurate. Like I said, he's been hitting a ton of greens. He just can't putt. He cannot putt very well at all right now. So I like Pan though for this week. He's definitely GPP. I feel like if he makes the cut though, he's gonna pay off at a tough course like this. So
I always have a really tough time trying to figure out when CT Pan is going to pop and when he isn't, because I actually got on him live in terms of betting at Honda. I was like, oh, this guy's losing the most strokes in the field putting tee to green. He's like number 1. So, he was like 250 to 1 and like 3 off the lead. I was like, yeah, I'm in. And then he didn't make a putt the rest of the week. It was like, oh, okay. He historically putts really poorly on Bermuda, but these guys have time to mature. For a while, you couldn't take Tony Finau because he couldn't putt on one surface. And as it turns out, the guy just can't putt. It doesn't matter where he's at. He's just going to miss 5-footers all the time. But the ball striking is going to be there. I don't know if he can sustain the same level of ball striking as he saw at Honda. Just even looking back at what he's done this year, I mean, he gained over 11 strokes tee to green at PGA National. And before that, he had yet to gain over 2 in any tournament this year. So I understand maybe you ride the hot hand and maybe the putter becomes average this week and then boom, CT Pan at a course that is not overwhelming because he's not a super long hitter, he can start to compete. And I think that logic makes a lot of sense. I just look at some of the other guys around him like Sang Moon Bae, who everyone was all nuts about for Riviera. He made the cut and then played poorly on the weekend. He's lost in a playoff here before. He's starting to get his game back. I think I like him a little bit better. And then Sam Saunders, I think, is interesting only because it's the week before everyone's going to want to play Sam Saunders. Maybe use him this week and fade him at Bay Hill.
Yeah, I was big on Sam Saunders at the start of the year. I kind of feel like he played so much, he might have finally hit that wall, but he's had a week off to recuperate. He's still in Florida. He's a Florida guy. So he's been striking it really well off the tee too, which is nice because it brings a level of consistency to your player. He's not going to be in the trees like every second hole. And on a course like this, that's important. I actually haven't looked up his course history here this week, but he is a player that we were actively targeting the first 5 or 6 weeks with top 20s and just as like GPP plays, and he really did pay off a lot for DFS. So I'm on board with that too. I actually probably has a little bit more consistency to his game than CT Pan right now. So definitely like that. Sang Moon Bae is interesting. He's pretty quality player, and his game's still rounding into form. But I actually didn't know he lost in a playoff here. What year was that?
The year that Luke Donald won, I think.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, there's like a 5-man playoff.
Yeah, like Ernie Els was in it. Like everyone was in that playoff.
Everybody. Okay. No. Okay, bigger. That's interesting.
The only reason that I bring him up, Sam Saunders is 2 for 3 in cuts made here at this course over the past 3 years. T22, okay. T24, and then a missed cut. And he lost over 5 strokes putting last year, so that's when you lose over 5 strokes putting in 2 rounds, probably going to miss the cut. The other 2 down here, Brendan Harkins just continues to play well, and I'm not particularly sure why, but he does. So that's interesting to me at 7,000. Then Keegan Bradley, $7,000. They keep pricing him so low that I get suckered in every week.
Oh man, Keegan is such a sucker play this week, and it's not even that he's a sucker play because he's playing that badly. It's just like, why is he so cheap?
Is this the tournament where he was the first round leader and then missed the cut?
Oh, I think it was too, wasn't it? Oh my God, yeah, that was either last year or it was a couple years ago. Oh man, yeah, 7K Keegan Bradley is just got disaster written all over it, doesn't it? Now, again, I mean, from a price standpoint, he almost feels like a must play because he hasn't been playing that badly. I mean, he was top 5 like a month ago. So look, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Keegan Bradley. I'm just going to avoid him just because he's probably going to be so chalky, and I feel like it's some kind of trap. But I don't know if you have any stats to throw out there on him, because I just didn't even bother looking him up this week.
It's the same thing with Keegan every single week. The guy's going to be really good tee to green. Can he get up and down? Can he make a putt? The answer is generally no. But sometimes he strikes the ball so well that he ends up inside the top 10 because he just misses birdie putts and then taps in for par. When it starts going the other way, that's when we got a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can use him in cash. I would probably prefer not to use him in cash games if possible, but I understand most people who like want to go with Sergio and one other stud are pretty much going to force themselves into getting some Keegan Bradley in their lives this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because he is way too cheap. I do agree with that. I kind of like Ben Martin at 6,900 too, though.
Get to Ben Martin. Just simmer down. Let's talk about Ben Martin. And the people below $7,000, because there's not many I like at all. But Ben Martin's got to be one of them. He's just destroying it with approaches right now, and he's Bermuda Benny. You get him on Bermuda, start playing Ben Martin. He's below $7,000. I know this is going to come back to bite me, but I would rather play Ben Martin in cash than play Keegan Bradley in cash.
No, me too. I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, that's why I brought him up. I was trying to convince Steve on our pod last night to play. He didn't really like him. I like him, though. I mean, it's like you said, you get him in Florida on some Bermuda grass. He's been a little bit all over the place, but the thing I like about him is that he hasn't been like terrible in any one category. He's been really strong in strokes gained approach some weeks. So he feels like a player might be ready to put it together for a big week here. So I like the price at the very least. For GPPs, I feel like you can target him under 7K and get upside that you can't really get with too many other players here this week.
Honestly, when I look down the $6,000 list, I know 2 of these guys are going to pop. I have no clue who they're going to be because it just seems like a wasteland. The only 2 I can actually make a case for, one is Matt Every because it's in Florida, which is not a very good case to make. And the other one is Ryan Armour because he was playing so well throughout the swing season at the beginning of the year and he's a guy that just hits every fairway. He doesn't get himself into a lot of trouble. That I think he can make the cut, but I don't have super high hopes. Like Ben Martin's really the only one that I want to play.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Every, like maybe a first-round leader bet here or something like that. I don't think I'm going to go that way in DFS. I mean, just too risky, although I will not be shocked to see Matt Every play well in one of the next 2 weeks at all because he really does like the Bermuda grass, likes Florida. Very risky play, though. Yeah, Ryan Armour was striking it really well. I actually haven't been keeping up with what he's been doing. I know he's definitely fallen off a little bit. At 6,800, I'd probably rather just go up to Hudson Swafford, who feel like might have a good result here too, but he's just a bit more consistent player. Definitely still brings a little bit of upside. He hasn't been in good form for feels like forever, but at 6,800, he's still making cuts and he does get the cuts made at least. So I kind of like Hudson Swafford if you're going to go at the 68 range.
Yeah, I can actually see that with Hudson Swafford. He didn't play exceptionally bad at Honda outside of one round when I think he shot like 82. But the other 3 rounds were fine. And again, you're not going to be making super crooked numbers at this course. You might just make 5 bogeys in a row. But Hudson Swafford can somewhat combat that. For a GPP flyer, I think Ben Martin is my favorite play from underneath $7,000. But you may have convinced me on Hudson Swafford as the next guy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Hudson Swafford's a guy who at least he makes a lot of cuts. He usually saves his poor rounds for Sunday, which kind of sucks when you think about it. But at least he's making the weekend, and he can throw a few birdies in there to at least get you some DK points. So again, I just look, it's like you said, this is a wasteland under 6,900 this week. You know, there's no one at the min price I'm even really relatively interested in. So I feel like 6,800, you could take a little bit of safety with Swafford. Maybe you can mix some Armour in there. And if you really hate yourself, you could roster Matt Every too. Yeah.
What about Grayson? Grayson 69. I don't know why.
What has Grayson been up to?
Nothing. Like he had a decent career builder. I think that's been about it. Like people are going to play Aaron Wise. I know that.
I
probably won't, but people will.
Yeah, I don't know about the setup for Aaron Wise, just because it's such a more of a bogey avoidance setup than a birdie or better. So I would probably, Wise is definitely a GPP play too. Grayson Murray, yeah, Grayson was sick before the Honda Classic. That's what happened. So he got the flu. He still played, but he played through it. Might be a good time to get back on him, I guess, at 6,900. I would probably play him over Aaron Wise here for sure. Just got a bit more experience, and he's proven he can stay in the mix at some of these tougher venues. So I guess getting back on Grayson over Aaron Wise is probably the way I'd go.
I think if we just think about like upside purposes, Grayson possesses that, at least from a birdie making standpoint. I know it's about bogey avoidance a lot this week and just kind of maintaining yourself, but he's one of the few people that can go out and just make a bunch of birdies. And it's not going to be a situation where he has driver in his hand all the time. He's going to be shanking it into the woods. He can go less than driver here and maybe try to pull a Gary Woodland from the year that Gary Woodland ended up winning at this course, and just keep it in the fairway, hit your irons, and make some birdies. But like, just looking back at what he's done so far this year, he seems to be another victim of playing well, but at certain tournaments, he's just having one disastrous round. Like, he was 14th at Career Builder, made the cut at Farmers, but was 75th. Made the cut in Phoenix, but was 70th. Then followed that up with the top 10 at Pebble Beach the week after. Then, like you mentioned, he got sick and missed the cut at Honda. If there are so few options down in this range that I do think that Grayson is a viable play.
No, absolutely. I mean, and look, I don't want to sound anti-Grayson just because I forgot he was in the field, but he got sick at Honda. But this is a very talented player. I mean, he's a top amateur. People forget how talented he is just because of the field stuff. But I never feel bad about rostering Grayson when he's underpriced. And by the way, I hate to bring up Quail Hollow again, but he competed at Quail Hollow last year too. So maybe it's a good setup for Grayson. I definitely at 6,900. Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because he should be on your GPP radar for sure.
Well, he's always a good GPP play because, like you mentioned, because of the off-the-course stuff, everyone hates his fucking guts. So they don't play him. It's just like you're always going to get Ian Poulter. Regardless of how well or poorly Ian Poulter is playing, he is always lower owned than he probably should be. Grayson Murray falls into the exact same camp.
Yeah, and at under 7K this week, he's easy to fit in. So I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, he's actually a decent pair, especially if you start comparing skill sets and you want sort of the birdie maker lineup. Like, he's, while volatile, he might be a decent guy to pair with Rory if you're trying to build a Rory lineup. Keegan, Grayson, Rory, fill in the rest of like the other. Luke List, Jason Kokrak, and Adam Scott. There's your team. Just let's roll the dice here. See who can make some birdies.
You're either first or you're last, that's for sure. I mean, there's no doubt.
All right, Geoff Ulrich, plug the site and all your work up on DK Playbook.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, you check out the PGA cheat sheet on DK Playbook up there every week. Like I said, I only write up a couple players, but it's got some stats and guys who've got good course history, a little bit of a course write-up too. And then you can definitely check out Fantasy Golf Metrics if you want. A lot of great tools there, articles up weekly. You can definitely check us out. It's at FG Metrics. And I'm on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind. So definitely check that out if you have some time. And thanks a lot.
All right, dude. Thanks for being on the line.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can get at me on Twitter for most of your questions. I will have a live chat, as I do every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on the DraftKings YouTube and Facebook channel. So you want to go check that out. And always look into becoming a member at Fantasy National. Saw how quickly I pulled up those stats. You want to cut down on your time for research? All the stats you want, all the tools you need to make yourself an efficient player, if nothing else. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Go check out the show from Monday where Andrew Cuss had the most ludicrous... Jeff, you still there? Did you hear what Cuss said about the 30-minute break between CBS and Golf Channel and how he likes it?
Why would you like it? What is the possible gain?
He said he needs time to go have a cigarette, take a shower, respond to emails.
Yeah, miss all the good golf that's going on. That's ridiculous.
It'd be like if you were watching the NFL and it's like, no, you can't watch the second quarter. Don't worry about it.
Who was his pick this week? So I know not to roster, by the way.
DeChambeau.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, were you going to roster him anyway?
No.
All right. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck with the Valspar Championship. I'll see you next time.